Hi, I'm Michelle Brown. I'm the Director of Scholarships here at the Dayton Foundation, and with me today is Jessica Schreiber, who is our Scholarship Program Coordinator. We wish we could all be together this year for the Scholarship Selection Committee training. Usually we get to have a nice lunch and go over all this information, but COVID's not going to allow that to happen this year, unfortunately. So we decided to go ahead and record the presentations so that all of our volunteers can access it at any time and go ahead and get all the information about how to select scholarship recipients this year. It'll be an interesting year as we work through all the applications. We've already noticed that our numbers are kind of down, unfortunately. So we're just going to play it by ear and get through it and hopefully get some good applicants going for all of us. So kind of in review, our last year in our 2020 scholarship season, we had over 215 different scholarship funds, and altogether 564 scholarships were awarded. So that each of those funds, some of them award 2 or 3 different scholarships for that one scholarship fund. So that was a total of $1.5 million from those 216 funds, which is a record for us. That's the highest that we've awarded in a year. Last year we had 1,500 students apply. Unfortunately, over 700 of them did not finish their application, but that came out to about 52% of the students received at least one scholarship, which for the amount of work that they put into their application, that's a pretty good return on investment, return on their time. So for getting started, I'm going to turn that over to Jessica, and she's going to talk a little bit about how to get going when you are ready to review your scholarship applications.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so to get started, you're going to go to our website. It's listed here on the PowerPoint, but it's www.daytonfoundation.org/scholarscommittee.html. When you click on that link, you're going to fill out your conflict of interest form. Once the form's completed, it'll come to us, and then we will send you an invitation to the review, which will be sent via email. And then once you get the email, you'll just confirm that your information is correct, and then you'll set your password. You may have to create or update your reviewer account. You cannot log on though, however, from that link. So once you get everything completed, make sure you go back to our website and log on then from there, and then you'll be good to go. Usually you'll receive the invitation in your email roughly anywhere after March 17th, but before April 30th. Do check your junk mail or your spam. Sometimes it does tend to sneak into there, unfortunately. So make sure if you don't see it in that time frame shortly after the first part of March there, that you're looking in your junk mail as well. And then I'm going to kick it back over to Michelle, and she's going to pop up the video. This video is on our website. The links are here as well. But it is a great tool to kind of show you how to work through reviewing the process online.
Okay, bear with me a second because I'm going to do this whole screen sharing thing. Okay, Jessica, can you see it?
We're good.
Good. Okay, so this is on our scholarship committee page. You will see this video here, and this is just a video that Blackbaud, who's the company that produces our Scholarship Connect software, that they put out there, and you'll be able to go back and view this video again. And on this PowerPoint, there's 2 different links here where you can go to watch it. But it's just a good video that kind of gives you an overview of what Scholarship Connect looks like and how you'll go in and fill out the rubric and complete the reviews. So hang on here while I get it started.
When signing into the academic work system, you should see a page similar to this one. This is where you can see all of your reviewing assignments in one location. You may see just one opportunity listed, or you may see several opportunities. You may even see a listing for the general application. Please note any deadlines listed for the opportunities. This is the last day you'll be able to submit your evaluations. To start working, click on the name of an opportunity. On the next page, you'll see a list of all applications you've been asked to evaluate. Note the qualified column. Any applicant that says yes has met the minimum criteria for the award. If you see an applicant that says no, it means they have failed to meet the minimum criteria, and you can contact an administrator for more information about why. If you'd like to see more information about the opportunity, click on the Opportunity Details button. You can see a description of the award, how many will be given out, and what the typical value of an award will be. You can also see the deadline for applicants, as well as your own deadline to finish your reviews. To start working, click on the Begin button beside any application. On the next page, you'll see 3 tabs. Click on the Application tab. This is where you can read the application. If you see a link that says View Document, click on it to view the file. You may also see links to read letters of recommendation or references. Now click on the Review tab. This is where you can conduct your evaluation of the applicant. Please pay close attention to any instructions that may be at the top of this page. Any question with an asterisk beside it is required. Please answer all required questions. You can also click the bookmark option to place a reminder beside any application you'd like to remember to revisit. Think you've got the hang of it? You can work faster by clicking on the Side-by-Side tab. This displays the Review and Application tabs side by side. Click on the Exit button in the lower left corner to dismiss this view. You have 2 options to finish working. If you've not yet finished your evaluation, click on the Save button. This will temporarily save your work. You can sign back into Academic Works at any time to continue evaluating the applicant. If you're totally finished with your evaluation, you'll be able to click on the Submit button. This will send your evaluation to the administrators and complete your review. If you do change your mind, you can come back at any time before your deadline to update your review. Please submit all reviews for all applications you find in the reviewer portal by your deadline. Check with your administrator for additional information on finalizing your decisions.
Okay, I think we're back to the original screen, right, Jess?
You got it. You're good.
Okay. So the video will be available, so anybody can go back in and rewatch that to see how to go into the portal and complete your reviews. If at any time you get stuck, you have any difficulties, something's not working right, feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'll get right back to you and help you get that issue fixed. So next, what's on the application? Jessica's going to talk about that for us.
All right, there's a few things in the application that you guys are going to have to review. First one being letter of recommendation. That is a letter that someone, most likely a teacher or a guidance counselor, someone has submitted for on the student's behalf. Then you'll have the resume. There's a lot to look at on the resume, so just make sure you're kind of going through and making sure you're getting to know who this student is, that everything looks, you know, on the up and up, and they've got a good history. Then you have the essay. The essay is, you can see the prompt there that we've given them this year, and it says, please write an essay describing an experience or obstacle that you have faced that has contributed to why you want to pursue your future career in educational goals. So that is an essay that you'll be able to read that the student has responded to. Again, in the video, you'll see where it said view documentation. That's where you'll click and you'll be able to pull up that essay and read what they've submitted. Also, they will upload the first page of their FAFSA form. And then there's a section in there where they can list any special financial circumstances. So there may be some circumstances in there, especially now with COVID going on. I venture to say we may see a lot of those this year, so pay close attention to those as well. And then last but not least is the transcript. And I'm going to kick it back to Michelle so she can kind of go over the things that you're going to want to look at in the transcript that it's definitely going to stand out to you.
So here's an example transcript for us from Miamisburg High School. One thing to know this year, because of COVID, every school district is having different issues with their timing for their semesters. So we very well could be in a situation where some students don't have their first semester of their senior year on their transcript yet. Of all the high schools that we work with, guidance counselors are aware of this and they're going to get it back out to students as fast as they can. But the issue being is that by our March 5th deadline, will the high schools have those transcripts ready on time? So if they don't have that first semester from their senior year on that transcript yet, we're just going to go ahead and accept it and work with the student and hopefully get that information later. If it's a borderline student where they might be not quite at the GPA where they're supposed to be yet, and there's some issues there, then let us know and we'll reach out to the student to make sure we get that first semester from their senior year. But if they have pretty solid grades from all other 3 years of high school, hopefully that trend will continue and we'll just go ahead and go with whatever they've been able to submit. It's a crazy year and I think that's just the best we can do with it at this point. But a few things to look at on the transcript. You're going to look for different things of different kinds of classes that they've taken. So a lot of students can take their basic English class, but then you'll see some of them have like this one, English 10 CP, which is college prep. And then there's also honors classes and AP classes, which would be the highest level. And all of those different classes are weighted at different levels according to the high school. They all have different point systems for that. So you'll want to take a look at that. And then you can see, so they had the English 10 college prep class, and then they had US history honors, which will count for more points within their GPA. And then there's an AP psychology class on there too, which again will count for more points. And then that's the advanced placement class. And so with that, at the end of the class, they can take a test. And if they score a certain way on the test, then they'll get college credit for that class. You can also, most transcripts will have the attendance on there. So you can see, you know, so every once in a while we'll get a student that has a lot of days that they've been absent. So then that leads us to the question, well, did they have a major health event? Did something major happen at school, or were they just not attending school a lot? So those will be the things that you'll see. A lot of times if the students had something major happen in their lives or they've missed a lot of school, we'll see that in the essay portion of it and we'll figure out what's going on there. But just something to take a quick glance at. And then there you'll see the cumulative GPA and the credits. Some of the high schools weight their credits, some of them don't. So that'll be one thing that you'll want to take a look at. They also enter their GPA on the application and they enter their unweighted and their weighted GPA. So if the school isn't weighting their GPA, then you'll see a 0 or not applicable in that part of the section. And then a lot of transcripts will have the ACT scores listed on there. And we also ask students to submit the ACT scores to us additionally, but most of the time it'll be right there on the transcript for you. Another thing to take a look at on the transcript is kind of what the trends are. Sometimes you'll see like maybe their freshman year, their grades were on the lower side, but then over the other 3 years of high school, all those grades have come up. And so they might have a lower GPA because of that, but that's not something to ding them on the application because they've figured out high school, they've improved themselves, they've improved their grades. And so that's a great quality to see in a student. So that's something that you want to take a look at and then attribute that to maybe possible lower GPA and not mark them lower on the rubric when you go to score that person. So that takes us to ACT scores. Again, we're going to have another weird year with ACT because a lot of the ACT tests were not even taken last year. Right now, everybody's on schedule to take ACTs this spring, but whether that really happens or not, I don't know. Also, a lot of colleges and universities are no longer requiring the ACT at this point because there's so much difficulty taking the test due to COVID. So you'll just kind of have to see if they have the test. If they do, great. If not, we're not going to punish anybody for that because this is just totally, of course, off year. But if they do have ACT scores, there are college readiness benchmarks for each of those section tests that you can kind of take a quick look at. So for English, they should have at least an 18 on the ACT. And that shows that they're going to be ready in college and they'll be able to pass their English classes in college if they have at least that score. And then you can see their reading and math are 22 and science is a 23. The average score on the ACT is a 20. Perfect score is a 36. So again, this year we're just going to have to take the ACT with a grain of salt and kind of take a look at it. The only time I start to get really concerned is if I see super low ACT scores and then a GPA that's really high. So there's a mismatch there on how they've done in school and what they've attained and what they've learned in their classes. I think we'll probably see more and more of that, being how COVID has affected their classes and everything like that. But just something to keep in mind, if you're starting to see like a 12 on the ACT, but they have a 4.0 GPA, there's a disconnect there somewhere. And that's just something to keep an eye on as you look at the rest of their application. Okay, financial need. There's so many different acronyms to go along with financial need, but we've kind of spelled them out here. So you have the FAFSA, which is the application that everybody completes. From the FAFSA, every student gets what they call a student aid report. On that student aid report, they're going to have the EFC, which is the expected family contribution. And this is not exactly a fair number, but it is the number that the government comes back with as saying what the family is expected to contribute toward the college education. Now, is it a realistic number when it comes back and it's $30,000 a year is what a family is supposed to contribute to the education? No, not really, because nobody has an extra $30,000 laying around. However, that is the one equal number that we can use for the FAFSA and try to come up and determine who has the most financial need. Cost of attendance, COA, is how much it'll cost to go to that school. And so if you take the cost of attendance, you subtract the expected family contribution, that's giving you the student's financial need. We'll talk about that more in the next slide. But generally, if a student has an EFC $0 to $10,000, typically in a normal year, there is a high level of government help that will come to that student in terms of Pell Grants and different scholarships that are available to them. Now, again, not a normal year, so we're not sure what the Pell Grants are going to look like this year and what the financial aid will be like from the colleges and universities, because everything is so different and so many colleges and universities are struggling with their finances. How much scholarship money is really going to be available to students? It's hard to say at this point. If a student is in the $10,000 to $30,000 EFC range, they have a medium amount of help available to them, but their level of need is going to be high because they don't have as much help coming to them from any government resources. $30,000 to $60,000 EFCs, there's not a lot of help out there available for that students, but they also probably don't have as much need. And $60,000 and plus, again, it's going to be a low level of help available, but their need isn't as great either. Again, those are all fluid numbers. It just gives you a rough idea of what their financial need will be in the end. So some examples, if you're looking at cost of attendance. So if a student's going to Sinclair, tuition at Sinclair is about $2,900 if they're taking 24 credit hours. If their EFC are $5,000, then obviously they're not going to have any financial need because everything's covered for them. University of Dayton, you look at tuition, housing, the meal plan, you're almost at $60,000 there. If their ESC is $5,000 if the family is expected to contribute, then they're going to have a financial need of $51,000. Typically, the University of Dayton will come back with some good financial need for those students to reduce the tuition, but they still have a lot of need there as they go to that school. And of course, the tuition is much higher at UD than it would be, say, Wright State University, where your tuition is almost $4,800. Housing, meal plan, fees, and books all much lower. So you're looking at $20,000 to go to Wright State University. Again, the same EFC is $5,000. Their financial need is going to be about $14,000. And they're going to get some help through the Pell Grant. They'll be able to take out a subsidized loan, hopefully have work study to help them with that. So their level of need isn't going to be as high, but they still have to make up and come up with their tuition that isn't covered with their cost of attendance. If you have any questions as you're going through and reviewing students' applications and an EFC and some sort of number just isn't adding up, please feel free to reach out to us and talk to us about it. A lot of times when we get to do this presentation in person, a lot of hands go up at this point Everybody has questions about, how does this work? How does this work? And unfortunately, we can't do that this year. So feel free to give us a call or reach out to us via email, and we'll be happy to talk with you about it. Not a big deal. Then the next part is the rubric. So as you saw in the video, you're going to get to go through and score every single application. And the rubric, you're going to score these different areas. And Jessica is going to talk a little bit about that.
Awesome. So yes, so on the rubric, it's a 10-point scale, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. There are certain circumstances where we have kind of a little bit of weight reflected upon those. So that's on the back end, and we've got those taken care of. As far as the resume goes, really pay attention to looking at the student's activity. A lot of times they're going to put their extracurriculars, their work, but also an important thing, Michelle got a good takeaway from a class that she had taken over the summer, and it was looking at the history that the kids have put down their resume as far as work maybe they've done at home. They might be an active student, mom and dad may be busy, and they may be in charge of watching that, younger sibling or something after school, or in the evenings, whatever it may be. So kind of look at that as well. Don't just focus on their extracurriculars or if they have a job, but look down deep and see if they've listed any of that kind of stuff as well. On the essay, make sure it's well written. Make sure you can kind of feel what the student's trying to convey in that essay. Make sure you're looking at punctuation, spelling. Did they answer the question correctly that we've asked them? Those are definitely, grammar is a big portion of that. And we harp on the kids all year long as we're trying to talk to them as far as making sure everything's capitalized, you're using the correct punctuation, words are spelled correctly. Most likely they've had somebody else review the essay for them, but if not, like I said, you've really got to look at those things and make sure that if they're doing those things right, then most likely they're going to be rated on to college. If not, well, we got to see what's happening there. The letter of recommendations, those are, like I said, are set forth from their reference. Most likely you've got a counselor or a teacher. There are some schools that just take the letter of recommendation and just copy it pretty much for every student, put the student's name in and move forward. So you may see the exact same letter time after time after time. But there are some that we like when they do this, but they do write that, in-depth letter about that student. So look for that, make sure it's unique, that you're kind of getting to know what that person feels about that student. As far as the academics, you'll want to look at their overall GPA, test scores, see how those test scores are coming out. Like Michelle was talking about, it is unfortunately a lot different this year. So we want these kids to succeed for sure. So make sure we're if there is that disconnect, that you're reaching out to us and we can try to reach out to the student and see what it was. But again, we're in a whole nother time frame this year, and we're just hoping that these test scores and these GPAs match up this year for us. Bonus points. So you can award bonus points, but we highly recommend that you use them sparingly. If you see a student that really exceeds, that is over the top, just, stellar student, you can go ahead and award the bonus points, but award them generously. So you don't have to give bonus points to every student, because not every student's gonna, need those bonus points. But also, I know personally when I'm reviewing, and I got this from Michelle, so I believe she's the same way, but when we're reviewing and giving bonus points, we don't do it very often. That student has to really stand out, and they have got to be, I could read through 50 applications already, and maybe in those 50 applications, I might only give bonus points to one student, and it may only be a couple bonus points. So that's definitely something that you want to make sure that you're using, but use them very sparingly.
And it's more if the student totally fits that scholarship criteria, they're the absolute ideal student, then throw them a couple bonus points, because that'll put them up over the edge when the scoring all comes down to us comparing who has the highest scores.
Yeah.
Right,
no, you're perfect. And then last but not least is the financial aid. Again, Michelle explained that in the last slide, but just make sure that it's clearly demonstrated. I know that she talked about, the special circumstances and things like that. The students are going to list them there. So pay attention and make sure you're just kind of looking at all these little points together.
And one thing to keep in mind as you go through the rubric and you start scoring students is to pay attention to your personal biases as you're going through and looking at it. So for example, what I mean by that is you might see on some students' resume that they were involved in yearbook and they did yearbook all 4 years of high school and they were the photographer for the yearbook. And it just so happens that you were in yearbook too when you were in high school. So you have a special place in your heart for those yearbook students, which I totally get because I totally do the same thing. But pay attention to that. So when you are scoring that student's resume, that you're really scoring it based on their resume and not thinking, oh, well, I love this kid because they're a yearbook kid because I did yearbook. Try to make sure you're paying attention to that within yourself and take yourself out of that as you're putting in those scores. So just kind of something to keep in the back of your mind as you go through. Because I'm the worst when it comes to anybody who worked in fast food in high school. I always am biased towards that student because I worked at Wendy's in high school. So just try to pay attention and remove those biases.
That was a great point. Thanks.
All right. And Jess, you want to talk about the timeline?
Sure. Scholarship Connect opened for students to begin their applications on December 18th. So the deadline is 4 o'clock, March 5th, 2021, and it is 4 o'clock. If you work with students that are filling out their applications right now, maybe somebody you know personally is filling out their applications, make sure they start now if they haven't already started. If they start at that last minute at 3 o'clock or 3:30 on December 5th, it is not going to get completed. So we highly stress that 4 o'clock deadline. It's very important. We have kids call us all day on March 5th and they're calling up until that 4 o'clock. Oh, I just started. There's just no way. They've got to start now or have already started. It takes a good couple hours, but they also have those reach outs to do with their letters of recommendation, the essay to write. It's just not something you can do in 5 minutes. And we don't want them to do it in 5 minutes because if they do, then they're hurrying and we're not really seeing who the true student is. All letters of recommendation from, again, the guidance counselor or the teacher, those are due March 12th. Those come to us. And again, we will have all this uploaded and ready for you guys to get out to the selection committees. So we will send that email invitation between March 17th and April 30th. Again, make sure you're checking your spam or your junk mail. And if you don't see it in that time frame, reach out to Michelle and I via email, phone, whatever, but we'll make sure we get that invitation out to you. As of now, I think Michelle will probably weigh in on this too, but we're trying to do award announcements between May and June. Everybody's different. I know we're probably not going to be in person for all of these. Obviously we didn't get to do it last year, so we're kind of piggybacking on what we had to do last year. But the awards will be announced to the students between May and June. And then we will send the scholarship checks out to the students. They do not get the check. The check goes directly to the college. And we usually do those about the second week of July, each year. So our goal is to stay on track with getting those out because by the time we get those checks out in July and they get mailed to the schools, they're usually getting that first payment ready by the time they get the check. So we want to make sure we're getting them ahead of the students getting the payments.
Exactly. And as we look at that March 5th deadline for all the students, we do realize, especially with some of the schools still not even in-person classes yet, that we may have to push that deadline. And if so, we wind up pushing the March 5th deadline. That's going to push out when the selection committees get their emails and can start reviewing. So we're going to do it as fast as we possibly can, but we also want to make sure that students have enough time to apply and get their applications complete, just because communication is so tricky with students right now, especially like for students in Dayton Public who aren't even in the buildings, and they won't be for until the beginning of April at this point. So we're doing the best we can, but if we feel the need to send out some of the deadlines so we can get more good qualified applicants in there, we will do it. Okay, some tips and tricks. So these are going to be different things as you go to log into your account. So you're going to get that email that's going to invite you to review. And then moving forward, you'll go back to the sign-in page. And when you're on that sign-in page, always make sure you're on the references and reviewers tab. There's 2 different tabs there. The other tab is for applicants. So don't if you're trying to sign in as a reviewer and you're on the applicants page, it's not going to work. So just make sure you're on the references and reviewers.
And it happens because I do it a lot.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Also, if you have any problems with your password at any time, because I know I have like 20 different passwords and I can never remember which is which. If you try to log in 5 times in a row with the wrong password, it will lock you out for an hour. But once you get a couple into it, you're like, I have no idea what my password is. Just click on the trouble signing in link there, and it'll send you a link to reset your password. It's pretty easy to do. Another thing, when you are opening attachments within the review portal, be careful, because I do this all the time. The attachment will open in a separate tab. So like on the Google tabs. And then you're in that other tab, and then I always go and I click on the X to go back to the application, but then it closes it all down. So just make sure you're clicking on that one little tab to close the essay or the transcript or whatever down, so you don't have to log back in. And I probably do it 20 times a day.
It will happen. I guarantee you, it will happen to you.
Yes, it makes me so mad every time I do it, but that's the way it is. When you're done reviewing all the applications, make sure you click submit. A lot of people like to wait and they're like, oh, I don't want to be the official submitter at this point. But do make sure you click submit, because we cannot see your scores until you've actually hit the submit button. Otherwise, it looks like you haven't reviewed it to us from what we can see in our end. So don't be afraid to hit submit, and you can go back and change things after you hit submit. So it's not a final over and done with type of submit button. And keep in mind, we're available to help. Definitely, you can give us a call, you can email us, and we'll reach right back out to you. Of course, we're not in the office, so phone calls, you'll have to leave a message. So it might even be better, just go ahead and email us and say, hey, can you please give me a call? And then we'll return your call. Because I suspect we will definitely be working from home. The Dayton Foundation has us working from home at the beginning of June, but at the rate vaccines are going at this point, it probably is going to be later in the summer until we can actually get back into the office and see each other and do all this work. So again, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Here are our email addresses, our phone numbers. Don't hesitate to reach out, and we appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and get a little refresher course on how to do the review process, and also for taking the time to review all these scholarship applications. We couldn't do it without you. There's so many different scholarship funds and a lot of students to review, and we appreciate your help. And just keep in mind what a difference you're making for these students to help them pay for their college education. Especially today, it's so important to get them to college and help them pay for it and get through it all. So thank you very much. We hope to hear from you, and thanks for taking the time to watch this.
Thanks so much. Take care.